Once upon a time, in a far-off land, there lived a young 17-year-old boy named Chester. He lived an isolated life with his aunt in a tall tower hidden amongst some snowy peaks. His parents disappeared at his birth, and Chester never knew them. This was the only place that he'd ever known. Chester was fortunate, however, to have companionship with his small dog Mason. They had countless hours of joy with one another, whether that be slaying mobs that swarm the shadows at night, sharing meals with one another, or lavishing in the sun during the fishing season. Mason made the lonely times a little easier. Chester lived a quiet life, often spending time reading books in the library, but also cherished his aunt's high-quality food so that he never went malnourished. He even had spare food to sneak away from the table and give Mason an extra little snack. His aunt had always been his only family, and they'd been close, but after a short bout of sickness, she passed away, leaving Chester alone in the world, leaving the tower in tatters. As he looked out the window of the tower, Chester realised how much he missed out on. He'd always dreamed of exploring the world outside the tower, but his aunt had been protective and never let him go. But now, with her gone, his dreams of exploration were at the forefront of his mind. He packed a few things, said goodbye to his aunt's memory, and set out on his journey. It was a long and tiring walk, but Chester was determined to see the world. He walked for days until he came across an icy terrain that he had to navigate through. The wind howled fiercely, and the cold was almost unbearable. The icy plains were endless, but Chester knew that with every step he took, he was getting one step closer to the beauty that lay ahead. As he trudged through the icy terrain, Chester arrived at a snowy forest with trees taller than he could possibly imagine. With his legs quickly tiring from the journey gone by, he knew that he needed to find somewhere to rest his legs. Thankfully, he came across a fallen tree with large swaths of sweet red berries that were easy to harvest and provided a much-needed place for him and Mason to rest. Chester swiftly collected all the berries, stuffing his pockets full and eating whatever remained. He and Mason perched on the cherry trunk to recuperate their energy and plan their next steps. Having set off from the fallen tree, Chester felt full of life. However, little did he know, he was mere moments away from impending doom. Suddenly, he fell through thick snow and was in dire need of help. Anxiously, while struggling to breathe, he waded through the snow towards some shrubbery on the opposite side of the pit. What was only a few seconds felt like a lifetime as he struggled his way across, while Mason watched on in horror. As night crept in, Chester wandered further ahead, curious of what he could see in the horizon. When he found the source of his curiosity, he was shell-shocked. The ice spikes that he found were magnificent in size and were truly a wondrous sight. As Chester continued on, he saw skulls of past travellers, which reminded him of the dangers that lay ahead. But he pressed on, determined to explore the world, come what may. Chester made his way through the beautiful landscape, trying to find a place to settle for the night. His hopes were high as he saw light in the distance. Unfortunately, his hopes quickly diminished as it became apparent that the light was from a secret lava pit scattered with bodies of travellers of the distant past. Smartly, Chester chose to continue traversing the landscape ahead. Maybe we'll come back here later. As the sun started to set, Chester spotted an igloo in the distance. It was a welcome sight after a long day of walking. He made his way over to the igloo and found it to be empty. Chester was relieved to have a place to stay for the night, even if it was just a small igloo. Chester settled into the igloo and started a fire, the warmth filling the small space. He looked around and saw some supplies left behind by previous travellers, which he used to make himself a warm meal. As he ate, Chester looked at the skulls he had found earlier and wondered about their stories. He felt sad for those travellers who'd lost their lives trying to explore the world. As he drifted off to sleep, Chester thought about his own journey and the risks that he was taking, but he knew that he had to keep going if he wanted to see the world, and with that thought, he closed his eyes and slept soundly, dreaming of the adventures that lay ahead.